There is a certain magic to the silence of the early morning, between the veil of night and the birth of dawn. The hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. hold a mystery that stirs our souls in ways we can't always explain. If you've ever found yourself suddenly awake during these moments, not from noise or nightmares, but as if something unseen is calling you, you're not alone. It's as if the universe, in all its quiet majesty, is gently tapping on the door of your awareness. What could this mean? Why do we wake when the world is still asleep? Why do we stir when the clock ticks softly in those hours of stillness? The night wraps around the world like a blanket, heavy and warm, shielding it from the demands of the sun. The hum of humanity dims, and the silence becomes a canvas for thoughts too timid to appear in the bright glare of day. It is in this stillness, this fragile space between dreaming and waking, that you find yourself roused. I read your body stirs, your eyes flutter open, and you sense it. Something that isn't a sound, isn't a touch, but is a presence all the same. The clock whispers the time. It's between 3 and 5. You wonder why. Why now? Why you? Why people respond to you as if you were the child? You are the cruel representation of their presence. Because these are not ordinary hours. No, these are sacred moments, draped in the quiet of untold stories. When the world sleeps, the universe listens. And in that listening, it calls out to those who dare to hear. You might think you're alone, but you're not. This is a shared awakening, an ancient phenomenon, as old as time itself. This is not the stirring of restlessness or the tug of insomnia. It is the gentle pull of your spirit, whispering to you that there is more to see, more to feel, more to understand. The early morning hours do not shout their messages. They murmur them, soft as the wind slipping through the trees. If you listen closely, if you lean into the silence, you might begin to understand. There is something about these hours that asks you to pause. It asks you to stop running from yourself, to sit with the questions you bury during the day, the ones you're too busy, too scared, too distracted to face. These hours are patient. They wait for you to acknowledge them. They wait for you to acknowledge peace. They wait for you to acknowledge peace. They wait for you to acknowledge peace. They wait for you to acknowledge. Do you hear it, that quiet voice? It doesn't come from outside. It rises from within. It's the part of you that knows things your conscious mind has yet to realize. It's the part of you that feels before it understands, that sees before it looks. That voice grows louder in the quiet, more persistent in the dark. And so you wake, not out of habit, not by accident, but by design. You wake because the stillness cradles the truth, and the truth seeks you. It doesn't demand much, only that you be present. It doesn't come with answers, only questions. Questions that linger in the corners of your heart. Questions that are not meant to be solved, but savored. What have you been avoiding? What have you been yearning for? What dreams have you let slip through your fingers in the chaos of the daylight hours? The early morning doesn't ask for polished thoughts or perfect plans. It only asks for honesty. The air feels different between 3 and 5 a.m. It carries the weight of possibility, the kind that stretches beyond the confines of logic and reason. These hours are not meant for spreadsheets or schedules. They're meant for soul work. They're meant for the kind of reflection that doesn't happen when the sun is up and the world is demanding. Perhaps this is why the poets write of the dawn, why the mystics pray, and why the seekers sit in stillness. They know, as you now do, that the early morning holds a power that can't be ignored. It is a time to ask yourself the questions that matter. Who am I? What do I want? How can I serve? You might find yourself overwhelmed by the enormity of it all. That's okay. The morning doesn't rush you, it simply invites you. Sit with your thoughts, sit with your fears, sit with your dreams. Let them unfold like the petals of a flower, one layer at a time. It's not about finding answers, it's about allowing yourself to be found. Found by your purpose, found by your passion, found by the parts of you that have been hiding in the shadows, waiting for the quiet to emerge. When you wake between 3 and 5, it's not a coincidence. It's a calling. It's the universe nudging you gently, reminding you that you are not just a body moving through space. You are a soul with a mission, a heart with a story, a mind with untapped potential. The daylight will come, as it always does. The noise will return, the demands will pile up, and the moments of clarity will scatter like leaves in the wind. But for now, in these sacred hours, you are free. Free to listen, free to feel, free to be, free to listen, free to feel, free to be. The early morning doesn't promise answers, but it offers something better, the chance to ask the right questions. It offers you the stillness to hear your own voice, the courage to face your truth, and the grace to begin again. So the next time you wake between 3 and 5, don't reach for distraction. Don't dismiss it as random. Sit with it, embrace it, let it guide you. For in the quiet of those hours lies the power to transform your life, not with noise or chaos, but with the gentle whisper of truth. This speech is designed to evoke deep reflection, draw the listener in with vivid imagery, and create a sense of urgency and wonder. It maintains suspense throughout by focusing on the mystery and significance of the early morning hours. The night breathes a rhythm that most of us forget to notice. The hum of its pulse is steady, measured, and slow. Between 3 and 5 a.m., this rhythm shifts, becoming softer, like a heartbeat in its quietest state. If you listen closely, you can feel it, the faint, steady pulse of existence itself. This is the world at its barest, stripped of pretense and the noise of the day. It's as if the earth pauses in those hours, holding its breath just long enough for you to hear the whispers of something ancient, something that was here before you, before us, before time was even named. And when you wake in this stillness, you are not intruding. No, you are not intruding. No, you are meant to be here. This moment is for you. You may sit in the dark, the weight of the hour pressing against you. It isn't heavy like fear or worry. It's heavy like truth, heavy like knowing. You feel the weight of your own existence, and for a moment, it is almost too much to bear. But then, as if by some unseen hand, the weight shifts. It doesn't leave you, but it settles in a way that feels manageable, almost comforting. You realize in this moment that you are not alone. Even in the emptiness of the room, even in the absence of sound, there is a presence. You don't have to name it, nor should you. It's not meant to be named. It's meant to be felt. It's meant to be trusted, and so on. You sit there, awake in a world that still sleeps, and you begin to notice things you never noticed before. The way the air feels cooler, crisper, almost alive. The way shadows dance even when there is no light. The way your thoughts flow more freely, unbound by the constraints of daylight logic. This is the hour of intuition, the hour when the mind quiets enough for the heart to speak. And oh, how it speaks. It speaks in a language that doesn't need words, a language of sensation and knowing. You feel it in the pit of your stomach, in the flutter of your chest, in the tingling at the tips of your fingers. This is when the truth rises to the surface, not because you're looking for it, but because it's been waiting for you to notice. The truth about who you are, the truth about what you've been running from, the truth about what you're capable of. It's all there, waiting in the quiet, waiting in the dark. You might be tempted to push it away, to turn on a light, or reach for your phone, anything to break the spell of the hour. But resist that urge. Sit with it. Let it wash over you, even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it feels overwhelming. This is where the magic happens. In the stillness, in the surrender. For it is in these early hours that the seeds of transformation are planted. Seeds that will grow not in the glare of the sun, but in the quiet nourishment of the night. These seeds are your thoughts, your dreams, your deepest desires. They take root in the soil of your soul, watered by the tears you cry in silence, warmed by the hope you dare to feel when no one is watching. Oh, and as you sit there, you begin to understand that waking at this hour is not an interruption, but an invitation. An invitation to step outside the constraints of time, to step into a space where past, present, and future merge into one. And when you return to your space, you are refreshed. You are transformed into oneness with your. You see flashes of your life, moments you've lived, moments you've dreamed of, moments you fear. They come not to haunt you, but to guide you, to remind you of the path you're walking and the paths you've yet to take. The hours between 3 and 5 are a mirror, reflecting back to you the truths you've hidden from yourself. They show you the beauty you've ignored, the pain you've suppressed, the potential you've doubted. And in that reflection, you find clarity. And you find the courage to face the parts of yourself that you've kept in the shadows. The parts that are messy, imperfect, and raw. The parts that make you human. And in facing them, you begin to understand that these parts are not your weakness. They are your strength. May the blessings of the Holy Transfiguration graciously make you welcome the parts of yourself that you have worked for so long to hear. The stillness of the early morning doesn't demand that you fix yourself. It doesn't demand that you have all the answers or that you make a grand plan. It only asks that you be present. Present with your thoughts, present with your feelings, present with your soul. In that presence, you find freedom. Freedom from the expectations of the world. Freedom from the noise of your own mind. Freedom to simply be was here with you today in these words of Yoga How to Be. And in that being, you begin to remember who you are. Not who the world says you are, not who you think you should be, but who you truly are, the person you were before the noise, before the fear, before the doubt. This is the gift of the early morning hours. They strip away the layers of pretense and performance, leaving you bare and vulnerable, but also authentic and whole. They remind you that you are more than your titles, more than your accomplishments, more than your failures. You are a soul, infinite and unbreakable. The hours between 3 and 5 are not for everyone. They are for the seekers, the dreamers, the ones brave enough to face the quiet and find themselves in it. They are for those who are willing to sit in the dark and let the light find them. So when you wake in these hours, don't see it as a disruption. See it as a blessing. See it as a moment to reconnect with the deepest parts of yourself. See it as a chance to listen to the whispers of your soul, the murmurings of the universe, the truth that lies within. The morning will come soon enough, bringing with it the noise and the chaos of the day. But for now, you are here in this moment, in this stillness. And in this stillness, you find everything you've been searching for. The world feels different in these hours, as though it's turned its face away for just a moment to allow you to truly see yourself. The distractions are gone, the hum of busyness silenced, leaving only you and your thoughts. The universe whispers secrets it doesn't share during the day, secrets that are meant only for those brave enough to wake and listen. This isn't the time for answers neatly wrapped in logic. No, this is the time for questions that ripple like waves, questions that stir the still waters of your soul. Have you ever asked yourself why you hesitate when the world offers you a chance? Have you wondered why your dreams linger on the edge of possibility but never cross the threshold? These hours are not here to accuse. They are here to illuminate. There is something deeply vulnerable about being awake when the world is asleep. It's as though you've been chosen to hold a fragile truth, one that can only survive in the quiet. You are stripped of the masks you wear during the day, the roles you play, the expectations you meet. In this stillness, you are simply yourself, raw and unadorned. And while it is confusing to be able to see at any given time what is real and what is not real, the mind tends to wander at this hour, slipping between memories and musings, between fears and hopes. It feels as though time bends here, becoming less linear and more fluid. You remember things you thought you'd forgotten, moments that shaped you in ways you didn't understand until now. These memories don't come to haunt you, they come to teach you. You see the faces of people who have touched your life, some gently, some with force. You feel the echoes of words spoken and unspoken, the weight of choices made and avoided. And as these memories rise, you begin to see patterns, connections that eluded you in the rush of the day. The early morning doesn't just show you who you are, it shows you who you could be. It whispers of potential, of paths untaken, of possibilities that are still within reach. It asks you to dream, not with the reckless abandon of youth, but with the quiet confidence of someone who has known loss and still dares to hope. It is in these moments that creativity stirs. Ideas come not in flashes of brilliance, but in gentle nudges, as though the universe is guiding your hand. You might find yourself scribbling notes in the dark, capturing thoughts that feel both foreign and familiar. You might feel a sudden urge to create, to write, to paint, to build, to express the things you've kept locked away. And as Marie, most of what she wrote in that book was true. She was writing those letters. And so even though the letters kept locked away, these hours are not bound by practicality. They don't care about deadlines or to-do lists. They care about the essence of you. the part that isn't defined by what you do, but by who you are. And who you are is so much more than you often allow yourself to see. You may feel a sense of unease as you sit in this space. The quiet can be unsettling when you're used to the noise. The stillness can feel heavy when you're used to movement. But this unease is not your enemy. It is the doorway to growth. It is the space where transformation begins. When you wake in these hours, it's not because you failed to rest, but because your soul is restless. It is reaching out, seeking something beyond the ordinary. It is yearning for connection, not just with others, but with yourself, with a part of you that exists beyond the surface. This is the time to ask the questions you're too afraid to ask in the light of day. What do you truly want? What are you willing to let go of to make space for it? What fears are holding you back? These questions aren't meant to be answered immediately. They are meant to be lived. You may feel the weight of the past in these hours, the things you've done, the things you've left undone. Regret may stir, as it often does in the quiet. But regret is not a punishment. It is a teacher. It shows you where you've strayed from your path, not to shame you, but to guide you back to it. This calls for prayer. This calls for gratitude, celebration, revelation. The early morning hours hold a strange kind of forgiveness. They don't ask you to be perfect. They only ask you to be honest. Honest about your desires, your fears, your mistakes. Honest about the parts of you that are still healing, the parts that are still growing. And as you sit in this honesty, something begins to shift. You start to see yourself not as a collection of flaws and failures, but as a work in progress, a masterpiece still being created. You see the beauty in your brokenness, the strength in your struggles, the resilience in your scars. These hours remind you that healing is not linear, that growth is not always visible. They remind you that it's okay to be unfinished, to be a work in progress. They remind you that the journey is just as important as the destination. The stillness of the early morning is not empty. It is full of possibility. It is a canvas waiting for you to paint your dreams, a space waiting for you to fill it with your truth. It is a gift, not one wrapped in ribbons and bows, but one wrapped in silence and stillness. Solo. And as the hours pass, as the first light of dawn begins to creep into the sky, you feel a sense of peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from having all the answers, but the kind that comes from being willing to ask the questions. The kind of peace that comes from being present, from being open, from being alive. You realize that these hours are not something to endure, but something to embrace. They are not a disruption, but an awakening. They are not a burden, but a blessing. And in this realization, you find yourself not just awake, but truly alive. And this is what happens when you embrace your future. It is promise, it is powerful, you are radiant, and you become inspired. You control your environment. The quiet of the early morning holds a subtle power, one that cannot be understood with logic alone, but must be felt, experienced, and lived. As you sit there in the stillness, something begins to change inside of you. The world outside may remain unchanged, but the universe within you stirs. It stirs in ways that are ancient and new all at once. You are being reshaped, reawakened, remade, like clay on a potter's wheel, slowly but deliberately. The silence is not empty. It is full of all that you have been and all that you are becoming. The mind has a tendency to race, to fill the silence with worries, distractions, and doubts. But in the quiet, you begin to see those thoughts for what they are, transient, fleeting. They come and go like clouds in the sky, passing without holding on to you unless you choose to grab them. The morning hours don't ask you to chase your thoughts, but to observe them, to notice them without attachment, without judgment, to witness them and let them pass. It is in this space that clarity comes. Not in a loud announcement or a sudden revelation, but in the quiet unfolding of your own understanding. You begin to see the truth of your own being in a way that the distractions of the day often cloud. You see that you are more than your fears, more than your mistakes, more than your triumphs. You are the sum of all the moments you've lived and all the moments still to come, an intricate dance between light and shadow. In the quiet, there is a profound acceptance of this. No need to be perfect, no need to perform, just to be. In these hours, you begin to notice the beauty of imperfection. The world is not perfect, and neither are you. But there is something profoundly beautiful in the way things come together despite their flaws. A flower grows through the cracks in the pavement. A mountain stands tall despite the erosion of time. The stars shine even though the night sky is never completely dark. You are like these things, resilient, enduring, and full of potential even in the face of imperfection. Perhaps in the busy hours of the day, you forget this truth. The world demands so much of you, your time, your energy, your attention. It pulls you in many directions, telling you who you should be, what you should do, how you should act. It tells you that productivity is the measure of your worth, that your value lies in your accomplishments. But in the stillness of the morning, these demands fall away. You are left with the truth of who you are, unadorned, unapologetically human, and whole in your vulnerability. The early morning hours don't judge you for not being enough, for not doing enough, for not being where you thought you should be. They simply offer you space, space to breathe, space to reflect, space to simply be without the weight of expectations pressing down on you. In this space, you begin to realize that you are not defined by what you do or don't do. You are defined by who you are, by the love you give, by the joy you share, by the way you move through the world, no matter how imperfectly. These hours are not just for introspection, but for connection. The world may be quiet, but in that quiet, you find a connection to something greater than yourself. You may not know what to call it. Some may call it the universe, others call it God or source, or simply the vast unknown, but whatever you call it, it's here. It is in the stillness, in the space between your breaths, in the silence between your thoughts, in the silence between your thoughts. It is the energy that flows through everything, connecting you to all that is. In the quiet hours of the morning, you feel this connection more deeply than at any other time. You are not alone in your thoughts, not isolated in your struggles. You are part of a greater whole, a vast and intricate tapestry of life that stretches out before you and behind you, a web of interconnectedness that binds all things together. This connection brings comfort, brings peace. It reminds you that you are part of something far larger than yourself, that your life is meaningful, even in its quietest, most mundane moments. The early morning hours also offer a sacred space for release. There is something about the stillness that allows you to let go. The baggage you've been carrying, the worries, the fears, the hurts from the past can be put down for a while. They don't have to be fixed or solved. They can simply be released, like smoke rising into the air, dissipating with each breath you take. The burden doesn't need to be carried alone. You don't have to hold on to everything. Let the quiet take what you no longer need. This is the gift of these hours, the opportunity to release, to surrender, to let go of that which no longer serves you. You don't need to figure it all out right now. You don't need to have all the answers. Just let go of the need to control, to force, to push. In the surrender, in the release, you find freedom. A freedom that doesn't come from achieving, but from simply being, from trusting that you are exactly where you are meant to be. And as you release, you make room. Room for new possibilities, room for new ideas, room for growth. The early morning hours are a fertile ground for planting the seeds of the future, the dreams that you've tucked away in the corners of your mind. Now, in the quiet, those dreams are given space to breathe, to grow. They are no longer hindered by the noise of doubt, by the constraints of time, by the limitations you've placed upon yourself. In the silence, they bloom. There is a gentleness to the early morning, a softness that doesn't rush or demand. It allows you to be gentle with yourself, to accept where you are in the moment without judgment. It asks you to be kind to your spirit, to nourish your soul, to honor your journey. The world is harsh enough. The hours between 3 and 5 a.m. are not meant to add to that harshness. They are meant to soothe, to heal, to restore. You may feel like you don't deserve this time, that you should be doing something, anything to prove your worth, but that is the illusion of the day, the lie of productivity, the myth of achievement. The truth is that you are worthy simply because you exist. You don't need to earn your worth through work or achievement. You don't need to measure yourself against others. You are enough, just as you are. And in these hours, you are reminded of this fundamental truth. In the stillness, you are reminded of the importance of rest, not just for your body, but for your mind and soul. Rest is not laziness. It is essential. It is a chance to replenish, to renew, to restore your energy. The early morning hours offer you this gift of rest in its purest form, a rest that is free from the demands of the day, a rest that allows you to simply be. And as the morning stretches toward dawn, you feel a sense of peace wash over you. A peace that doesn't come from fixing, from doing, from achieving, but from being present in the moment. The light is returning, but you are different now. You have been changed by the stillness, by the quiet. You have remembered who you are and who you are meant to be. You have been touched by something greater than yourself, something that transcends time and space, and you carry that peace with you into the day. There is no expressed will in violence and violence. It is a race for Adam. You carry it in your heart, in your spirit, in the way you walk through the world. The world may wake up, the noise may return, but you are no longer bound by it. You are no longer bound by it. You are free, you are whole, you are at peace. And the day, with all its demands and distractions, cannot take that peace away. As the moments pass, you feel a sense of completion, a subtle satisfaction that doesn't come from accomplishments or actions, but from simply being present with yourself in this time. The stillness has provided a mirror, a place to reflect, a space to be with your own thoughts and emotions without the need to fill it with anything else. And within this emptiness, you discover that you have everything you need. You don't need the world to affirm you, to tell you that you are worthy or enough. You have already discovered that truth within yourself. God created the world so that man could enter into it and flourish. In the early morning, there is no rush, no ticking clock urging you forward. It is as though time has been suspended, allowing you to step outside its constraints. Here, in this sacred space, you can pause, you can breathe, you can rest without guilt, without the need to be productive. This is the time to honor the quiet, to listen to the subtleties of your soul. The world may move quickly, but in these hours, you move at your own pace. The hour is fleeting and you know it. As the world starts to wake, so too does the rest of your life. The demands will return, the responsibilities, the expectations, but right now you hold on to this feeling. You hold on to the clarity, the peace, the deep knowing that in this space you have been enough. You have been whole. And as the first light begins to break across the horizon, you understand that this quiet moment has been a gift, a reminder of who you are, who you've always been. It is not about seeking answers to the questions that weigh heavily on your heart. It is not about forcing resolutions, pushing for solutions. It is about being still enough to allow those answers to come when the time is right, knowing that in the stillness you have made space for wisdom. Answers may not come in the way you expect or in the time you desire, but when they do arrive, they will be the ones that you need. They will come in their own time, wrapped in the quiet of your soul, shaped by the moments of introspection that these hours have allowed. And so you sit knowing that the day ahead will bring its own challenges, its own chaos, its own noise. But right now, in this moment, you are untouched by it. You are in a place of peace, a place of rest, a place where the noise of the world is distant, and the only thing that matters is the rhythm of your own breath. There is a beauty in this simplicity, a beauty in just being, in simply existing, without the pressure to perform. The day will come with its demands, its distractions. But for now, you know that you have everything you need in this moment. The clarity, the peace, the acceptance. They are yours, not because you have earned them, but because you have allowed them to be. In the stillness, you have discovered that you don't need to chase anything. You don't need to strive or grasp. You simply need to be. And in this being, you come to understand that these hours are not an interruption. They are a blessing, a moment to reset, a chance to reconnect with your deeper self, and an invitation to listen, to hear the whispers of your soul that get drowned out by the noise of the world. These hours, while fleeting, offer a glimpse into something eternal, a truth that exists beyond the chaos, beyond the struggle, beyond the pursuit of achievement. The time will come to rise, to step into the world, to face the demands and responsibilities that await. But for now, you can carry this stillness with you. You can carry the peace, the acceptance, and the clarity that you found in the quiet moments of the early morning. You can carry the reminder that you are enough, that you are worthy, and that you have always been whole, even when the world tried to convince you otherwise. As the light of the day slowly fills the room, you feel a sense of readiness. You are not filled with fear or doubt, but with a quiet confidence. A confidence that comes from knowing who you are, who you have always been. You know that no matter what the day holds, you are capable, you are resilient, you are whole. And even when the noise of the world rises around you, you will always have the quiet moments to return to. Moments that will remind you of who you are and the peace that resides within you. In this moment, in the quiet of the early morning, you are exactly where you are meant to be. You are at peace. And that peace is enough to carry you through whatever comes next. The first light of dawn begins to filter through the window, gentle and tender, casting a soft glow on the room. It's almost as if the world itself is waking up with you, as if the universe is nodding, acknowledging your presence in the stillness. The quiet hours are drawing to a close, but what you've gathered in them is not easily forgotten. What you've learned in the silence has already begun to take roots, blossoming within you, even if you don't yet fully understand the significance. The day waits for you, and yet there's no rush to leave the sanctuary of these moments. The rush will come, the noise will return, but right now you are still here, firmly grounded in the quiet. For in this quiet, you have come to realize something profound. There is nothing more valuable than being present with yourself. Not in the future, not in the past, but right now. The future has a way of pulling you in with its promises and uncertainties. The past has a way of holding you with its shadows and echoes. But the present is where the power lies. It is in this present moment that the questions begin to shift. You no longer ask, why is this happening to me? Instead, you ask, what is this trying to teach me? There is a subtle shift in perspective, one that doesn't come from force, but from the deepening quiet that settles in your heart. You begin to see your challenges not as burdens, but as opportunities. Opportunities to grow, to learn, to evolve. The quiet hours have taught you that there is strength in acceptance, in surrendering to what is, and in trusting that you are exactly where you need to be. There is a grace in this understanding, a grace that doesn't require effort or striving, but rather a grace that arises from simply allowing yourself to be. The quiet, in its infinite wisdom, teaches you that the struggle isn't about fighting against life, but about learning how to move with it. It's about finding the rhythm within the chaos, the stillness within the noise. It's about recognizing that life is not a race, not a competition, but a journey that unfolds at its own pace, according to its own timing. As you sit in the peace of the early morning hours, you realize that you are not alone in this journey. There is a force, a presence that moves through everything, connecting you to all that is. You are a part of something greater, something vast and beautiful. The quiet hours make you aware of this connection, and it fills you with a sense of belonging, of purpose. You are not a solitary being adrift in a sea of chaos. You are not a solitary being adrift in a sea of chaos. You are a thread woven into the tapestry of life, contributing to the beauty and harmony of the whole. The stillness invites you to remember this truth, to feel it deep within your bones. In the quiet, you discover the power of trust. Trust that even when things don't seem to make sense, there is a greater order at work. Trust that even when the road ahead feels uncertain, you are being guided. Trust that even when you can't see the next step, the path will reveal itself when the time is right. The early morning hours teach you that trust is not a passive state. It is an active choice, a decision to believe that everything is unfolding as it should, even when it doesn't look the way you imagined it would. It's about letting go of control, of the need to force things into being, and allowing life to unfold in its own time. Be. The silence that fills the early hours is a form of wisdom, a wisdom that has been passed down through generations. It is a wisdom that tells you to listen, not just to your thoughts, but to your heart, your intuition, your soul. It is a wisdom that teaches you to be patient with yourself, to be gentle with yourself. In a world that often praises speed and action, the stillness of these hours reminds you that sometimes the greatest strength lies in simply being still. Sometimes the greatest clarity comes not from thinking harder, but from quieting the mind and listening to the truth that lies beneath the surface. And as you sit in the stillness, you come to understand that it is not the quiet that you seek, but the peace that it brings. The peace that arises when you stop fighting against life, when you stop trying to control every moment, when you stop striving for something that you already have, the peace that comes when you allow yourself to be exactly where you are, without judgment, without comparison, without the need to prove anything. The peace that comes when you stop chasing the world and simply let it unfold around you. It is in these moments that you begin to feel a sense of deep gratitude. Gratitude for the quiet, for the stillness, for the space to just be. Gratitude for the lessons that come through the silence, the lessons that are not always easy, but always necessary. Gratitude for the way that these hours allow you to reconnect with yourself, to remember who you are beneath the layers of expectation and obligation. So then he said, without being over elaborate, this is the gentleman I am. Gratitude for the way that the quiet helps you find your way back to your own truth. The early morning hours are a reminder that life is not something to be conquered or mastered, but something to be experienced. It's a reminder that there is beauty in every moment, even in the mundane, even in the quiet. It's a reminder that there is grace in imperfection, that there is strength in vulnerability, and that there is wisdom in silence. It's a reminder that there is wisdom in silence. And as you sit there feeling the warmth of the morning sun begin to touch your skin, you realize that these quiet hours are not just a time to reflect, but a time to reframe your life, your perspective, your story. In these hours, you can rewrite the narrative that has held you captive. You can release the beliefs that no longer serve you. You can redefine what success means, what happiness means, what peace means. You can let go of the need to be perfect and simply allow yourself to be whole. The quiet is not an absence of sound, but an invitation to listen more deeply, to hear the truth that has been waiting for you. It is an invitation to step outside the chaos of the world and reconnect with your own heart, your own spirit, your own soul. In this quiet, you remember who you are and who you have always been. As the day begins to unfold and the world around you stirs to life, you carry the stillness with you. You carry the peace, the clarity, and the understanding that has emerged from these hours. The world will continue to demand your attention, to pull you in many directions, but you now know that the quiet, the peace, and the wisdom you found within yourself are always within reach. All you need to do is return to it. In the stillness, you find your center. In the silence, you find your strength. And in the early hours of the morning, you find yourself. And in the early hours of the morning, you find yourself. And as you carry these lessons with you into the day, you realize how often the world demands your attention. It pulls at you from all sides with its endless tasks, its constant noise, its never-ending demands. But the truth you found in the quiet hours doesn't fade away so easily. It lingers within you, tucked away in your heart, reminding you of the space you have created, of the peace you have found. No matter how loud the world becomes, you will always have access to this stillness, this sanctuary within yourself. As the day moves forward and the usual busyness begins to unfold, there will be moments when the noise threatens to drown out the calm you've cultivated. But in these moments, you'll remember the quiet. You'll remember the stillness that held you so gently in the early hours, and you'll know that you can return to it, even amidst the chaos. It may not be the same as it was in the hours before dawn, but it is still there. The peace, the clarity, the sense of connection to something greater than yourself, all of that remains within you. The world may pull at you, but you are no longer as easily swayed. You have found your anchor. These quiet hours, though brief, have taught you something invaluable. They have taught you the power of slowing down, of stepping back, of listening more closely to your own heart. They have reminded you that you don't need to be constantly moving or doing in order to feel fulfilled or to make progress. Sometimes the most important thing is to simply be, to be present, to be still, to allow the world to unfold without trying to control every aspect of it. In these moments of silence, you rediscover what it means to be human, to live without the pressure to constantly strive, to exist without the weight of expectation hanging over you. You remember that your worth is not tied to what you accomplish, but to who you are. Your value is not measured by how much you do, but by the love you do and the way you show up in the world and the way you treat yourself. In the quiet, you are reminded of this truth, and it becomes a gentle whisper that stays with you long after the stillness has passed. The quiet hours are a gift, a reminder that everything you need is already within you. They offer you the chance to pause, to reflect, and to reconnect with yourself. They are a space where you can listen, not only to the world around you, but also to the deeper truths within you. And when you carry this awareness into the day, you find that you approach life with a greater sense of calm, a greater sense of clarity, and a deeper sense of purpose. The quiet has a way of grounding you, of helping you rediscover the essence of who you are, beyond the roles you play, beyond the things you do. In the stillness, you remember that you are not just a collection of tasks and responsibilities, but a soul, a being, a part of something much larger than yourself. And when you remember this, you carry that sense of connectedness into everything you do. You are more than the sum of your actions. You are more than the moments that fill your days. You are a being of light, of energy, of infinite potential. And even in the busiest of times, the quiet within you remains. It is a place that you can always return to, a place where you can find peace, clarity, and the courage to move forward, no matter what challenges arise. The quiet has taught you that life doesn't have to be perfect in order to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be full of constant motion in order to be meaningful. Sometimes the most profound moments of growth come in the stillness, in the spaces between the noise. And when you carry that stillness within you, when you allow it to guide you through the day, you find that you can navigate life with grace and ease, even in the midst of uncertainty. These quiet hours, though brief, offer you a chance to reset, to recalibrate, and to remember the things that matter most. They offer you the opportunity to come back to yourself, to reconnect with your own truth, and to carry that truth with you into the world. And when you do, you find that the world becomes a little quieter, a little gentler, because you are no longer as affected by its noise. You have found your center, and nothing can take that away from you. So as the morning light continues to rise and the day begins to take shape, you move forward, not with urgency or anxiety, but with a quiet confidence. You know that no matter what the day holds, you have already experienced something powerful, something transformative in the stillness of the early morning. You carry that peace with you, and it will guide you, just as the light guides the day. And as you walk through the day, you hold on to the truth that the quiet has taught you, that you are enough just as you are, that you don't need to rush, don't need to strive for perfection, don't need to chase after things that are fleeting, that in the quiet you have already found everything you need. And as you carry that knowledge into the world, you find that life becomes not something to be conquered, but something to be experienced with grace, patience, and peace. As the day unfolds, you carry with you the lessons learned in the quiet hours, the peace, the clarity, and the reminder that everything you need is already within you. The world may demand your attention, but now you understand that you don't have to be swept away by its noise. You've found your center. And with that, you move forward with calm and purpose. The quiet hours have shown you that you don't need to strive or chase. You simply need to be, and in that being, you are enough. Life is not a race, but a journey, and the stillness has given you the wisdom to navigate it with grace. No matter how busy the world becomes, you can always return to that inner peace, for it resides within you, guiding you, reminding you that in the quiet, you are whole and you are free.